I remember the exact moment I finally had to admit something was really wrong. It was the same week my credit card minimum hit and my kids' school tuition came due at the same time. And I just sat there staring at the account like, I cannot cover both of these, not even close. And what made it worse was that I couldn't explain how I had gotten there. Like I wasn't blowing money on vacation. I wasn't living in some crazy lifestyle. I had a decent income. I was working hard. I was doing everything I thought I was supposed to do. And somehow every single month, I ended up in the same exact place. Stressed, robbing Peter to pay Paul, and honestly too ashamed to even open my banking app. It took me a long time to figure out that it wasn't really about how much I was making. It was about the habits I kept repeating over and over without even realizing what I was doing. And that's what today's video is about. The 9 habits that quietly keep you broke. Not the obvious stuff, but the everyday pattern that feels completely normal until one day you realize they've been slowly draining you for years. And more importantly, what you can actually do about each one of them. But before we get into it, hey and welcome, I'm Fab. And if you're new here, I'm really glad you found this video. I paid off $91,000 in debt and I share my journey on this channel. I also talk with a lot of people going through similar situations. And the thing that keeps coming up over and over is that it's not really just about how much money you make. It's about the patterns that you keep repeating without even noticing you're doing them. And honestly, the first one on the list, I was guilty of it for years. And that is just guessing. Guessing what's in the account, guessing what's due, guessing what you owe, and then acting completely surprised when you end up short or overdrawn. Like, where did it all go? And I get why this happened, because looking at the real numbers is scary when you already have a feeling they're not good. So you just kind of don't. You glance at the balance, it looks okay enough, and you keep moving. But what you're really doing is making financial decisions based on a vibe, not information, just a feeling that it's probably fine. And that catches up with you, and fast. Like your paycheck hits, the balance looks decent. Then you go out and grab takeout, pick up a few things you need, and then 3 auto payments pull out and suddenly you're sitting on almost nothing with rent coming due. And it feels like bad luck, but it's not bad luck. It just happened because there's no plan. So here's where I would start. Every payday, before you do anything else, just write down 3 numbers. How much is coming in, what bills are due before your next check, and anything that's already past due. That's it. No apps, no spreadsheet, nothing fancy. Just those 3 numbers on a piece of paper. Because once you can actually see where you stand, like really see it, you can start making decisions instead of just hoping for math to work. And here's the thing about this list. Not everything on it carries the same weight. And that's where a lot of people quietly gets off track. Because when you actually sit down and look at everything you owe, it can actually feel like one big wall of stress. Like it's all equally bad, equally urgent, equally overwhelming. And when everything feels urgent, you just kind of freeze. Or you pay whatever is easier to deal with in that moment. Whatever feels like it'll get somebody off your back faster. And I did that for longer than I wanted to admit. I pay a smaller bill just to feel like I handled something, while the things that actually mattered most sat there untouched. And it wasn't laziness, it wasn't irresponsibility, it was just that everything felt the same level of bad. And I had no way to figure it out what actually deserved to go first. But here's what I eventually figured out. Some payments protect your stability in a way that others just don't. Losing your home, getting your lights cut off, not being able to get to work, that's a hole that's really hard to climb out of. Being a few days late on a credit card, that's a much smaller problem. When everything lives in the same pile in your head, it's really hard to see the difference in that moment. So what actually helps is just splitting it. Every paycheck, make a list of 2 columns. One side is what keeps your life stable, like your rent, your utilities, your food, getting to work. And on the other side is everything else, the stuff that matters but won't immediately derail your life if it has to wait a few days. And your paycheck goes to the first column before anything in the second column gets $1. No negotiating with yourself about it. And if you truly can't cover everything, call the people in the second column before it spirals. Most of them will work something out with you, but you have to make the call before it becomes a problem, not after. And you know what really makes all of this even harder? When there's literally nothing left over for the bills. No room, no cushion, just zero every single month. Because that's what running on zero buffer actually feels like. Not just tight, but one small thing away from everything else falling apart. And life genuinely does not care about your pay schedule. Something is always coming. A copay, a car thing, a school fee, something your kids need last minute. It's always something. And when there's nothing there, every single one of those moments, no matter how small, becomes a full-blown crisis. I remember what it felt like to get hit with a $60 unexpected expense and genuinely not know how I was going to handle it. $60. And it wasn't because I was irresponsible or bad with money. It was because there was just nothing there. Zero buffer, zero room. And that feeling, that low grade panic of knowing there's no room for anything else to go wrong, that is exhausting in a way that it's really hard to explain if you haven't lived it. So to shift here, and I want you to hear me on this, is so much smaller than you think. Every paycheck, before you touch anything optional, move something small into a separate spot. Even $10 or even $20. Don't call it an emergency fund yet. Just call it a buffer. Your little speed bump between you and the next thing that goes sideways. And I know what you're already thinking. I don't have anything extra to set aside. I hear that. I really do. But the only way to grow is if you start. You don't wait for a better moment. You start with what you have right now. But here's what tends to happen when there's no buffer and something comes up anyway. You have to cover it somehow. And there's one thing that's always right there, always available, always feel like it's the easy answer. The credit card. It's right there. There's a shortfall, you swipe it, and you tell yourself you catch up next month. And in that moment, it genuinely feels like you handled it. Problem solved, right? But what really happened is that debt is quietly reaching into your future paychecks and taking from them before you even get there. Like the interest, the minimum payments, the fees, they chip away at your income every single month until there's less and less left to actually work with. And it happens so gradually that you almost don't notice it happening. One month, there's $200 shortfall and it goes into the card. Next month, you still can cover it. And now there's interest on top of that. And then a few more of the just this once. Moments later, you're staring at the balance that feels completely impossible. And you're not even sure how you got there. That's how it happens. Not all at once, just slowly, quietly over time. So before you ever reach for a card, slow down and just take a second to ask yourself, is there anything I can cut out or push back this week? Can I pull from the buffer? Can I call and set up a payment plan instead? Run through those first. That is the last thing you reach for, not the first. And if your gut reaction when something goes wrong is immediately, okay, which card can I use? That's a pattern right there. And that is the one thing worth paying attention to. And a lot of it starts, honestly, the moment your paycheck hits. Before a bill is even late, before anything goes wrong, it starts right there. Your paycheck hits, you see the number on the account, and there's a little moment of relief, like, okay, we're good. And I remember that feeling so well. And that feeling makes it really easy to say yes to things before the basics are really handled, like a dinner out, a couple of small purchases, something you've been putting off for a while. None of it feels crazy. None of it feels reckless. It's all pretty reasonable stuff. But here's the thing. Most of that money, it's already spoken for. The bills just haven't shown up yet. So for example, if $2,000 hits your account, but $1,400 of that is already owed before your next check, you're really only working with $600. That's it. But if you spend that first few days like you got $2,000 sitting there, you already know how that ends. I experienced that ending more times than I like to admit. What actually changed for me was just getting in the habit of giving every dollar a job on payday before spending anything optional. Like the bills get handled, the buffer get its piece, any debt payment, the essentials, all of that goes first. And then whatever is left after all of that, that's the actual spending money. Not the big number you saw when the check first hit. What's left after you have a plan. Because keeping track in your head feels like it should work. It really does. But you're really just hoping nothing goes wrong. And something always does. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Because you can have all of this in place, the plan, the column, the budget, and still blow it. Not because the plan was wrong, but because of something that has nothing to do with the numbers at all. And honestly, this one is the hardest to admit. It's using money to deal with how you're feeling instead of actually dealing with what's going on. Like a bad day at work, buy something. Stressed about the bills piling up? Open up a tab and start browsing, just looking, no big deal. Exhausted or completely done for the day? Order takeout because you have earned the break from cooking and you deserve it. And look, I've been there. I completely understand that impulse. Those little treat yourself moments feel good. They really do, for a little while. But money spent to escape a feeling doesn't make the thing that caused that feeling go away. The bills are still sitting there when you come back. The debt didn't go anywhere. And now you've got even less to work with than you did before. And you usually feel the same guilt on top of it. The thing that actually helped me was just building in a pause. Not a rule, not something strict, no spending policy, just a pause. Before an emotional purchase, just ask yourself honestly, is this actually going to fix something? Or is this going to make me feel better for like 20 minutes and then I'm right back to where I started? If it's just a feeling, give yourself 24 hours. See if you feel the same way tomorrow. And if you've taken care of your priorities and you still want it afterwards, genuinely go for it. No guilt. But your priorities should come first. You deserve actual peace with your money, not just a quick escape that makes tomorrow harder. And the thing is, most of the expenses that wreck people's month aren't even unexpected. They just weren't planned for. And there's a big difference between those two things. We usually call them unexpected expenses, but are they really? Like a car is going to need something at some point. That's a fact. School supplies happen every August. Same as always. The holidays show up every December, whether you're ready or not. Annual renewals, that thing you know is coming, but you just haven't thought about it. These are not surprises. We just don't plan for them. So every single time one of them shows up, it lands like a crisis. It wrecks the month. And then you're stressed and you're behind and the whole cycle starts all over again over something you actually saw coming. Now, what made a real difference for me was picking 2 or 3 of these things and starting tiny little sinking funds for them. Like a few dollars per paycheck going in its own little name bucket. Even $10 towards car stuff, $10 towards holidays, something. Because over a few months, that actually turns into something real. But more than the money, it's the feeling. Those moments stop blindsiding you. You can see them coming, you've got something waiting for it, and that's the shift. Just that. It's honestly worth more than the dollar amount sitting in the bucket. And here's what's frustrating. Most people who hear all of this get it, like it clicks. They know what to do, but then they don't do it yet because they're waiting for something big to happen first. It's this belief that one big thing is going to come along and just reset everything. A raise, a tax refund, a new job, a bonus. And once that happens, then you get serious. Then you start budgeting for real. Then things will finally fall into place. But what actually tends to happen, and I watch this play out with my own life, is that more money without a different habit just creates a bigger version of the exact same problem. Like the lifestyle expands, the spending fills whatever new space shows up, and a few months after that raise kicked in or the refund hits, you're still doing the same thing, just at a higher number. Still wondering why nothing feels different, because the habits didn't change. Just the dollar amount. So the thing that I really encourage you to do is to start acting like the person you want to be with your money right now, with what you actually have. And that might look really small, like $5 towards a debt this payment, $10 into savings, skipping one thing this week that you didn't really need. It genuinely doesn't matter how small it is. What happens is that you're building the muscle, because if the habit isn't there, more money isn't going to create it out of thin air. The habit comes first, the breakthrough follows. And underneath all of this, underneath every single habit we've talked about today, there's usually one thing driving it. One story that makes it all of these patterns feel impossible to break. It's the story you've been telling yourself that you're just bad with money, that you are the kind of person this stuff doesn't really work for, that no matter what you try, you always end up right back in the same place. So why really go all in? Why put in real effort when it's probably just going to fall apart anyway? And when you're carrying that story, you put in small efforts. You quit faster, you accept things you actually have the power to change. And every time something doesn't go perfect, every time you slip up and life gets in the way, or your budget falls apart for a week, it just quietly confirms what you already believe about yourself. I know what that feels like. I lived that story for a long time. But here's what I actually think it's true. The difference between people who stay stuck and people who actually change isn't that one group is smarter than the other, or more disciplined, or just better at that stuff. It's that the one group stopped letting an imperfect attempt mean the whole thing was a failure. So I want you to try this. Just swipe out your thought of, I am bad at this, from something like, I haven't figured this out yet. That's it. That one tiny reframe changes what you do next. One better choice of your paycheck, one habit at a time. Because you're not powerless here. You can't change your income overnight or undo any past decisions. But you absolutely get to decide whether you keep running the same patterns or whether today is where something different starts. And that is everything. If you recognize yourself in several of these, maybe most of them, I really want you to hear this. That is not something to be ashamed of. That is actually really important information, because now you have words for what it's been happening. And once you can name it, you can do something about it. Like avoiding your numbers, leaning on debt, spending just to feel better for a few minutes, waiting for the next perfect moment to get serious. Those aren't character flaws. They're patterns, and every single one of them can be unlearned. So don't try to fix all 9 this week. Just pick 1 or 2 that really hits home and start there. Maybe this paycheck, you sit down and you actually face the numbers for the first time. Maybe you protect your essentials before anything else gets $1. Maybe you catch one emotional purchase before it actually happens. Small and consistent beats perfect and abandoned every single time. You're allowed to be in a mess and still treat yourself like someone worth fighting for, because you are. And if this felt like something you needed to hear today, make sure you subscribe. There's more coming soon. And before I go, I put together a free one-page self-assessment that goes directly with this video. It's called Which Habit is Costing You? It's 9 statements, one for each habit that I talked about today. You check the ones that sound like you and walks you through exactly where you need to start and where you need to land. Or if you found yourself nodding along to more of these than you expected, don't brush past that. That's worth paying attention to. The self-assessment is completely free. It's in the description, and honestly, it's worth sitting down with it before your next payday. You don't have to stay in the same cycle. The next decision you make after this video, that's where it starts.